Hi, thanks for joining us. Once again, I'm Steve Kroll, and with me today is Josh Barwa. As we mentioned in our intro to this, we're going to go through several sessions of what we call our BFO ESP framework, which is Express Strategic Planning. Today's session is going to cover goals and metrics, how to set your goals, how to measure them, and how to do this concisely so that everybody can look at the same goals and metrics and understand where you're going for the period.
So you may be asking yourself at this point, what is BFO's ESP? So to define what we're doing here today is we're going to take a holistic view of digital marketing, beginning with either your organizational, so your company level, and or your departmental goals to arrive at a strategic plan of action. In short, basically what we want to do is we want strategic thinking for digital success.
So let's talk about what strategy is. And thinking about ESP, when we think about strategy, we're trying to define how we're going to win the next period. A lot of different organizations will define strategies in different ways. And for our purposes and working with our clients and even internally, we want to define strategy as how we're going to define the next period. For the purposes of these sessions, we're going to define that as 2022. So what we're trying to do in that ESP, that double entendre you saw, I'm trying to predict what's going to happen by the end of 2022 through this process.
So what we've done here at BFO is we've developed a framework for you to follow. And for this session, as Steve had mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about goals and metrics. And for goals and metrics, what we're going to be looking for is what are we after? What's the big picture, whether it's for your company or for your own department? And what does success actually mean? How do we measure that success? So we'll be talking through that today. In the following sessions, we're going to be talking about brainstorming, scoring, and priorities. And then for execution, we're going to let you guys go ahead and execute against that plan to see if you can achieve those goals. In brainstorming, we're going to talk about those opportunities and initiatives. What are those things we can do to help hit those goals and metrics? Then we're going to score those. We're going to evaluate those opportunities against how long is it going to take? How much time is it going to take us? What's the cost it's going to cost our organization? Is there media expenditure that we have to think about? And then finally, what revenue are we going to get? We'll go into those in much greater detail in session 3. And then we're going to take that scoring and we're going to turn it into a list of priorities. And those priorities are going to be based on what is our best opportunity, what takes the least amount of time to get done, and what's going to cost the least amount of money and make us the most amount of money. And then you're going to execute against those priorities. And this process that we're going to follow, typically, if you're going to do it yourself, will typically take anywhere from 1 to 2 weeks, may take a little bit less, may take a little bit more, depending on how quickly your team is able to group together. If you ask BFO to assist you with this process, which we're always happy to do, typically it's going to take 2 working sessions, 2 full-day working sessions. And we recommend having a small brief period between those working sessions that can last anywhere from a couple days to longer, to a week or 2, just really depending on whether or not what your team's priorities are and how long it takes them to put the scoring together. That's really the longest part of the whole process. The other thing that we recommend is that you reevaluate this whole process every 60 to 90 days. You want to look back. Are you hitting the metrics that you've established in this very first phase? Are you slacking or slipping behind just slightly on those goals and metrics? You may need to evaluate the process and readjust your priorities based upon how you're trending towards your overall goals and objectives.
Let's talk about setting goals. So as we talked about strategy, sometimes terms here are interchangeable. I believe that goals and objectives are interchangeable terms at some point. So what we're going to stick to is goals, and we're going to call those our pillars. So our pillars are the purpose toward which each endeavor is directed. So I may set a goal as Steve wants to run a marathon, or maybe Steve wants to lose weight. I can set a more discrete goal. Steve wants to run a marathon in less than 4 hours and 30 minutes, or that I want to lose 20 pounds. That's sort of up to you. But what we want to do is make sure we do have a goal and we do have metrics. The other thing is that we want to stick to 3 to 5 goals top. You may just have 1, and that's great, but try not to go over 5. Otherwise, we're going to lose sight. The other thing that we've come to learn is that you can have multiple metrics in support of a single goal. So we'll go through that and we'll talk to that as well. But think about everything that you're doing. If you're going to launch a new paid media initiative, you want that directed toward one of these goals or a pillar. So if you're trying to increase revenue, maybe it's directed toward that. Or if you're trying to increase traffic, those things, they all get directed to the pillars so that they guide our work. And those metrics are ultimately going to help us know whether we're on track or off track.
And as we're setting those goals, and I'm sure if you've either gone through business school or you've been in the business world for a little while, you've probably heard this acronym before, but we like to think of goals as SMART goals. And SMART goals are defined as specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. We want to make sure that our goals all are very specifically defined, that we're able to measure the success, and we can measure and have set benchmarks so we can adjust if we need to. We want to make sure that they're achievable, that we're going to be able to hit our goals that we've set, make sure that they're relevant, that they're tied back to something specific, whether that's a company-wide objective or a group objective, and then make sure they're time-bound. So if your strategic period that you're looking at is 2022, you want to make sure that you're going to achieve these goals within that time frame.
So if we think about our goals, first thing we have to do is set the period. I've already said it. Period here is going to be 2022. So they're 1-year goals. And my first goal, what I really, really want to achieve is I want to grow my revenue. I want to grow my top line by 20%. And my second goal, and what I'm thinking about, is I want to increase my average order value. I want the number of people checking out, the order value of people checking out to go up by 30%. And the third goal is I want to increase my conversion rate. I want to grow up simply by 10% because I think it's going to have a significant impact on my top line revenue. Now, you notice these goals are interrelated. Yours don't have to be. You can see that goals 2 and 3 on our list all roll up to number 1. Your goals don't have to be connected like ours. You could have a social media goal as number 2 or 3, and you can set metrics for that. And notice we did include our metrics here, but we don't always have to. I could just say, I want to increase my revenue. I'd like to increase the average order value. And then what we're going to do from here is we'll start setting those metrics, and Josh will take us through some of the metrics.
So as Stephen mentioned, we've already set our goals. So we know exactly what we want to achieve here in 2022. But how do we know if we're being successful? And the way that we know that we're being successful is based on the metrics that we define for achieving those goals. So we're going to start with our first goal of increasing our revenue. So we know we want to increase our revenue by 20%. So we want to take our revenue from $2 million to $2.4 million this year. Pretty achievable goal, especially for a company that's up and coming and growing. Want to make sure that it's something, again, that you can certainly hit and measure against. For our second goal, for our average order value, we actually wanted to define 2 different metrics. So as a quick reminder, you can have multiple metrics for every single goal that you have, or you can just have a single metric that you're measuring against. Again, it all has to make sense for what you're trying to do with that goal. So for average order value, we want to take our average order value from $100 to $130. So we want to have more people buying more products or more expensive products from us when they add them to their cart. And another way that we're going to achieve that is by increasing the number of people that are adding items to the cart. So we want to make sure that we're also increasing our add to cart actions by 25%. Now you may be asking yourself, okay, we're trying to hit 30% when we want to increase our average cart actions by 25%, typically, or by 30%, typically, yes. However, because we're tying our goals together here in this specific example, in goal 3, one of the other things that we want to achieve that we want to measure against is we want to have our cart completion rate go up from 10% to 11%. Simply, that means that we don't need as many people adding items to the cart to increase the average order value and to increase that revenue. So all of our metrics here are tied real closely together. So, and again, just as a quick reminder, we want to take a step back every 60 to 90 days and relook at these. Are these metrics trending in the right direction? Are they going to get us to where we need to be? It's okay in 90 days to adjust these metrics. Maybe you need to adjust one up or adjust one down to make sure that you're hitting the goals that we've set together as an organization.
Another thing to learn. So this was a quick session on how to set your goals and understanding metrics. Our tip to you is don't kill yourself trying to build these things. Make it simple, make it easy, make it repeatable and easy to understand. What we're going to do is we're going to share a cheat sheet for you that you can draw this stuff out on your own. We'll give you the SMART goal summary as well as a sheet to add your goals and your metrics to, just as a way to start planning for 2022. And Josh, tell us about our next session.
And in our next session, as we had mentioned earlier, we're going to be talking about brainstorming. So now that we have our goals and our metrics established, we want to talk a little bit about what are the tactics that it's going to take to get us there. And during this session, we're going to go through some brainstorming activities and ways to get a little creative and to talk about how we can build out new tactics and test new things to really get to those goals that we set for ourselves.
Awesome. Thank you, Josh. It's been a pleasure doing this session with you. I look forward to doing session 2.
Same to you.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us. We look forward to seeing you again.
Cheers.